Guys, what's digital literacy? Define digital literacy in your terms, and how that pertains to the construction industry in New Zealand. He's got a smile on his face.
Yeah, not sure how to define it straight up and down, but essentially when we talk about digital literacy, we talk about the ability to work digitally, quite straight up and down. We're still dogged by a tranche of workers out there who are only comfortable with paper and 2D. A lot of the incumbents are a big part of that problem because they tend to be legacy partners.
Yeah.
So bigger clients have worked with them for a very, very long time, but they're marooned in 2D land.
Yeah.
So these guys can't participate in a true digital design. They're just at the tail end. You've got to remember, documents aren't design tools; they're products of design.
Yep.
You don't design on 2D. And document creation, the drudgery of document creation, has been largely automated by the software that we've got these days. But you have to accept then that you're going to design in 3D, and that those documents aren't going to look the same as they did 20 years ago.
God no.
We've
evolved.
I don't know how many times we've heard products like Revit and that, they don't look as good as AutoCAD. Well, guess what? AutoCAD doesn't look as good as a hand-drawn charcoal sketch from the 17th century.
So the back of a fag pack.
Yeah, that's right.
And cross-section.
At the end of the day, you're not going to end up in court because your documents don't look good. You're going to end up in court because your design didn't work out.
Yeah.
So, people need to evolve. We can produce so much more, so much faster in a digital environment purely, and then leave the documentation to the tail end of things, which is true level 2 BIM maturity. But we're parked in this level 1 BIM land here in New Zealand.
I mean, BIM here is only clash detection anyways.
For services.
Yeah, what else do you use it for?
Yeah, truly.
So digital literacy in New Zealand, I don't know.
And we said earlier that we don't take it seriously, right? The stuff's not taken seriously. So is a company going to invest in their staff going on some advanced training to learn a new tool? Probably not. They don't have time because they have to be, bum in the seat on the site solving all the problems that shouldn't have been there in the first place. So we're not investing in the people to become more digitally literate. Yep.
And that goes all the way up the food chain too. That's the site staff as well. Everyone needs to be comfortable with working in a 3D environment or in a digital environment.
But things evolving though with Chat GPT, Hey, I love the tool. Yeah. From a text perspective, I do write a lot of reports, right? So every time I get stuck writing a report, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to brain dump into Chat GPT and I'm like, cool, works for me.
Thousands of university students across the country are doing the same thing, I'm sure.
Probably. That's 99.99% plagiarized though.
And a little earlier on, we also spoke a bit about the attitude on site on adopting technology. So and I was one of them, like 100%. When I was young and I was like, I'm an engineer, I'm on site, I'm doing this thing. And someone senior said, here's a survey instrument, learn how to survey because we don't have a survey and the engineers are going to do the survey on this site, all this, engineering surveying type set out stuff and as-built collection. I was very resistant. I was like, above this until I did it. And then I liked it. And then it gave me power because I had all
information.
I had information at my hands. I could go and measure stuff. I could go and set out things on my own. I didn't have to wait for people. I could actually be good at my job if I did the surveying thing. And when I evolved into doing more surveying and then implementing survey principles and digital strategies on projects, you would get graduates of engineers, and I would have purchased them, construction survey equipment to say, hey, you're going to use this because it's going to help you. And there's always this 2-month conflict where they're resisting it, you trying to promote it until you line up, and then eventually sometimes they become your best surveyors on site, and you can trust them. And all you do is you get a phone call that says, hey, I need this thing, and you'd be like, oh, sweet. And at that stage everything was connected, so I could sit in Auckland, and I guess this is just an example of people actually becoming digitally literate, which is rewarding. Was everything was connected. So I would be in my office in Auckland, home office during COVID times, and a guy on site would say to me, hey, I need this thing set out urgently. What I'd do, I'd quickly whip up the design, save it, it would synchronize over the cloud, be on their controller in the field, and I could literally tell them, while I'm doing this, take the total station out, put it in the field round about this area, and we had control everywhere, so I knew I could set up anywhere, basically. And then I could remote into the controller from my computer in Auckland. And this was the side, the Waikato 50 project in the Waikato. So I remoted into the survey controller.
Right.
It had a camera feed on the instrument. I was then able to remotely survey sort of reset the total station from my computer, have the latest design on that controller because everything was connected, and then help the guys set out in the field. And I could, on the phone, basically tell them, all right, move back, move left. All right, that's your mark. Put a pin there. That's this point, or that's this line.
So you did this.
I basically remotely surveyed
from the comfort of your own house.
I was sitting, at that stage I had an office in the garage.
Yeah.
So I was sitting in the office in the garage telling, basically driving a survey instrument in the Waikato. And that's, those engineers by that point had really valued and adopted that, hey, there's all these digital tools that's going to make their lives easier.
Yeah.
And that survey crew, that engineering crew was, the oldest one there was 3 years out of university. Wouldn't have happened with anyone else, which comes back to that attitude problem. Where
it does though, right? I mean, from an industry-wide perspective, it's perceived that if you're not on site,
you're not working.
You're not working.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to complete that sentence.
No, that's right. And you hear it all the time. It's so parochial, the mentality here. And it's sort of, it is a problem because you've got the labor-based economy and the knowledge-based economy working cheek to cheek, So the construction sector's attitude is everyone is a builder. Everyone comes in on site. Everyone sits in the site shed, regardless of how bad the connectivity is, how poor a working environment it is, how disruptive it is. And then the other part of that is that you get a natural sink through digital illiteracy. Your digital champions on site get reduced to simply clicking the buttons for the guy who doesn't want to learn how. Can you show me this? Can you show me that? Can you show me this? So now all of a sudden those guys who have the power of design to get out in front of issues are now retroactive. They're now simply being the monkey on the keyboard, hitting the keys for the guy that walked in who didn't want to spend a half hour learning how to do that.
Yeah.
So the entire baseline sinks. I think it was the Autodesk 2015 keynote speaker said something back in the day. He said, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read or write. They will be those who can't unlearn and relearn at will.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Back in the day.
That's a really good
2015,
point.
yeah. And he was all over it,
Yeah, and change is the only constant. And you got to learn to
right.
adapt and adopt.
And when you look at some softwares like Blender, Christ almighty, you look where that is today.
Yeah.
Sensational stuff. And the construction industry is right back here, and we're still struggling trying to get basic 3D geometry to be invested in.
And connected data, centralized data lakes to actually give you good, valuable information and make data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
We just make emotional ones, mate.
We've got to break down that wall between the office and the field. We've got to make these documents living documents, but we're just so parochial in our mentality to that.
I think coming to the other side of the fence, like you can sort of devil's advocate here. Some of the software is hard to learn, right? Some of it is difficult. Like to be a decent Revit operator, it takes years and training. Like Brent's got some years under his belt to do what he does. It's not that easy to pick up.
First 20 is the hardest.
Exactly. See, so like adopting technology.
You say first 20.
Yeah.
That's my working life, man. Come on.
That's the old gag. Yeah.
Brent was learning Revit before it was on YouTube.
No. I actually started an inventor. See, I'm all right. I'm quite a curiosity in my industry. I'm a digital modeler by trade, but I started off in Inventor, which is a manufacturing design tool. And the manufacturing industry doesn't have any of this baggage that the construction industry has, because they fundamentally understand what you get at the end of the ramp of the conveyor belt is what you get when you hit go back in the design phase. Again, in construction, we kind of think of design as a nice to have, but we'll work it out on site.
Yeah.
So we design as we build, which is bonkers. I still can't get my head around it. I still can't get a handle on building something while you're designing it.
So even in Combe, how many times do we have to do a scaffold adjustment to install services? I still remember Building 2. I don't know if you remember Building 2.
I try to put all of that behind me. I've paid a therapist a lot of money to deal with that.
So in conclusion, digital literacy in New Zealand, current status, poor, pathetic, doesn't exist?
Yeah, not great. Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's definitely behind, and I think it's the responsibility of the middle to senior management of these companies that want to make change to start putting some effort into investing in their people and in their workflows and structuring the way they do things in a digital way to improve that, definitely.